Today I'm going to tell you about how to be a successful entrepreneur. Now, I need to define what those words mean. An entrepreneur means somebody who takes a bit of risk and starts a business in order to make money. And successful is someone who actually makes money. I think a lot of people can be entrepreneurs, and a lot of people are entrepreneurs, but they're not making money, so they're just poor people. And it's actually quite easy to be a poor person. You just quit your job and sit at home. But it's a lot harder to quit your job and roll the dice and make money, and not just money that can buy you coffee every day, enough money that you can buy a yacht, or take your kids overseas on a holiday every year, or live in the house you want to live in. So this story is not a story for lifestyle entrepreneurs, really. This is really for people who want to get rich as an entrepreneur. And I think the type of audience that I'm talking about are people that can't get jobs, and those people are like slightly ADD. They definitely have an issue with authority. They just generally were not really welcome wherever they went, and so they can't get jobs. Like people like me, I couldn't get jobs once I qualified as a CA. Nobody wanted to give me a job, and I think there's a certain category of person that is unemployable, and that's the kind of person that needs to figure out a way to make money by himself or herself. Otherwise, they're going to starve. So, there's 4 broad things you need to understand if you're going to try and be a successful entrepreneur. The first thing is you need to be comfortable with working hard. If you don't feel that you're the type of person that can work hard, you're not going to make it. The second thing is you need to focus. It's probably the most important thing, and the majority of what I'm going to talk about today is the ability to focus and how do you focus. And the third thing is you have to keep moving. If you have got issues with change and uncertainty and you don't want to move, you're not going to make it. And lastly, there's a lot of luck. So for a guy like me, who is kind of slightly, as my wife reminds me all the time, slightly ADD and trying to do a lot of things at the same time, for me, focus has been the hardest challenge in trying to be an entrepreneur. And I've figured out in my own way, in my opinion, the secret to focus is not about willpower. So willpower leads to decision fatigue, and that leads to failure. So you can try and be focused. You can try every day and say to yourself, today I'm going to be focused. But it doesn't actually work. You get tired and you get unfocused and you get distracted. So what you need to do is you change your environment so that it takes all the distractions and allows you to be focused. You don't have to try. And there's 4 big things that are for me important in creating an environment that allows me to focus. The first thing is you need to get married young. Now why do I say that is because once you've taken the mating instinct out of your day, you can once you not looking at Tinder every 5 seconds or WhatsApp or tonight I'm going out, and tomorrow night, and the next night, and every night of the week because it's a numbers game, and you want to get really drunk because girls really like comatose drunk guys, but you've got to do 7 days a week, which means you're already hungover the next day, and you're tired, and you're still WhatsApping and Tindering, and I just think that's distraction, right? It's like, so if you just take the mating instinct out of your equation, you'll find yourself with a whole lot of free time, and you won't be hungover as much as you used to be. You'll also go to bed earlier because there's no incentive to really stay up late. So, there's a lot of advantages to for an entrepreneur to be married young. The first one is if you get married young, you can get divorced young. That was a funny laugh. So it's like with business, you want to fail fast. And I promise you, when you get married, you don't know what you're doing. You think you know what you're doing. And part of the reason people take so long to get married is because they're waiting to be sure. You don't know what you married until you got married. You don't know what business you've started until you've started your business. And sometimes you've just made a mistake, and you need to move on. And you need to move on quickly. And it's a lot harder to move on when you're 38. So you should try to do it when you're 25. And if you made a mistake, no problem. Just move on. Try not to have children before that moment, because that gets tricky. How do you find this love? My brother's over there. He's certainly looking for love. Any of you girls over here looking for love, he's your man. You're probably chatting to him on Tinder whilst I speak, in fact. I know he's looking for love. So how do you find love? I don't know, Jonah, I don't know how you would find love. It's tricky for you. But the first thing is, you you kind of look for the magic, you know? You kind of look for that connection. And if you get the connection, just marry the person. It doesn't actually happen that often. And you think it didn't happen often for me. I met my wife, had the connection, and I made it part of my life strategy was I was going to corner her. So it took me a while and quite a lot of drugs. But we managed to get it across the line. So just find the goal, you have the connection, close the deal. Finish it, move on. If you're not sure, if you just don't trust your gut, and some people shouldn't trust their gut, then you should just ask your parents to find someone for you. Because like an arranged marriage worked for many people for thousands of years. I don't see why it can't work anymore. There just won't be that much romance in the beginning, but that dies anyway, so. I'm just joking about that. I have the most romantic marriage in the world. So marry young. And if you've made a mistake, move on quickly, get married again, and keep iterating. Second thing, which is very important for creating an environment in which you can focus, is you need to take financial stress out of the equation, which means you have to live a frugal life. People think that the way to take financial stress out is by making a lot of money. So you think if you can just buy any jet or any car or any girl or any guy or anything you want, you don't have stress. And speaking from experience, that's not necessarily, that doesn't happen. What happens is you end up becoming a moth. Sorry, you become a flame, and moths come to the flame. And the types of moths that come to the flame are not the type of moths you want in your life, right? The bigger that flame, the more moths come. So actually having a lot of money creates a lot of financial stress. The way to reduce financial stress so that when you're thinking about your business and trying to make money, the way to reduce that stress is to make sure you don't have big overheads. You mustn't be lying in bed at night thinking, how am I going to pay the school fees? How am I going to pay for the yacht fees? How am I going to take my kids overseas? Or, just basic things. You mustn't worry about the basics. And so in my experience, my career, I've kind of had some ups and downs. But, my latest version, which I reserve the right to change, is pretty frugal. And the nice thing about all of that is it means I've got this long, long runway. So there's a certain element of having savings in the bank, but there's this other element of how much money you're spending every day, because that determines how long your runway is. And you can take off. The longer the runway, the easier it is to take off. And you don't want to be thinking like, I've only got 100 meters left of runway. So if you get your living costs really low, you put your kids in a government school, you drive a second-hand car, you rent a house, you can go for a hell of a long time, and you never worry about money. And you don't actually sacrifice your quality of life, not in a place like South Africa. So you've got to get those. If you want to focus, if you want to take that funny humming at the back of your brain out of the equation, you have to make sure you're not spending a lot of money every day. And by the way, one of the most expensive overheads you'll ever have is an expensive spouse. So, back to my first point, just marry somebody who's not going to spend a lot of money. The third thing to create an environment that allows you to focus is you need to find partners. Now, the reason for that is because a guy like me, and most people want to do lots of things at the same time, we have to delegate, You can't do everything. You actually want to do everything, but you can't do everything. So you need to find people that you can just, once you've got this little thing going, you just hand it off, and that person picks it up and runs with it. Now, I think, partners, very difficult questions. It's just like marriage. They can end in divorce. It can be very messy. And just like with girls and guys, you have to actually put yourself out there a little bit. You should be careful with partners, because kind of a girl that comes up to me and after 5 minutes wants to have sex with me, probably going to give me an STD. Same thing with a partner, right? Sorry for those of you. But same thing with a partner or a shareholder. If they just want to throw money at you or want to be your business partner or something like that, there's a catch. There's a catch. There's something wrong here. And you've got to be careful about those stuff. Those are like filters. For me personally, I'm always looking for people who can sell. It's quite easy finding people who can do things. It's quite hard finding people who can convince people to do things. And so by definition, somebody who can convince people to do things can also convince me that they're a nice person. That's what you want. You want that guy to do that. But then how do you filter through the crook, and the parasite and the people that are going to mess you around? So a very simple filter for that is birds of a feather flock together. Simple as that. Just look around, look at who these people hang out with, and when you're looking for partners, look for these telltales and be careful before you get into bed with people that they're not going to be the type of people that you can remain married to. But on the other hand, you have to take risks. And it's a very big risk to trust somebody and have the trust broken, but you have to take these risks. Otherwise, you can't do everything. You have to try to do one thing at the time, or you try to do everything with yourself at the same time, and then it all fails. So finding partners is very important. And I think, it's all about making yourself vulnerable. You say to people, this is my idea, this is what I want to do, blah, 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 and then they either screw you or they don't screw you, like early on. You want to be screwed early. You don't want to, I use the other word normally, but you don't want to have this kind of situation where after 10 years being in a relationship with somebody, finally they get a gap to take you out and they take you out. You'd rather be taken out in month one, So get used to trusting people, making yourself vulnerable, giving them an opportunity to screw you so that you can just put them on a little list of people you don't want to hang out with anymore. The last, and by the way, just, you're in bed with the wrong person, just get out of bed. Just move on, Just move away from the relationship. Don't get into these destructive fights with partners where everyone's fighting over the house and the kids. I'm talking that as a metaphor for your business and your staff. And you end up damaging the house and the kids. Just walk away. It can be quite hard, but that's the way to do it. The fourth thing that you need to do in order to create an environment that you can focus on, in my opinion, is you need to live in the right place. So it's about geography, location, location, location. Now, I would say just generally, if you're living in Cape Town and you say you're an entrepreneur, you're not really an entrepreneur. You're just a dude who wants to go surfing or a girl who wants to go surfing or whatever. You're not really, because there's no money in Cape Town. There's a lot of rich people in Cape Town, but they don't spend their money. They stare at the money. It's in the vase or in the bath or something, and they just look at it, and they stroke it. But in Joburg, money is in Joburg. So if you're serious about money, I made my money in Joburg. Look, Joburg's where the money is. Since I moved to the Cape, I've been spending my money. But Joburg's where the money is. So if you're really serious about making money, you've got to go where the money is and tap into that money. But having said that, I don't know if that's really the best thing for an entrepreneur who wants to be successful, because you have to also be creative if you're really going to change the game. You have to really get creative. And I'm sure my favorite comedian in the world, she has to think carefully about all these jokes she comes up with, like surnames and things like that. And to do that, she needs to be in an environment where there's no distractions. So you have to be in an environment that doesn't distract you. Joburg, if you're living in Joburg, it's like being a 7-year-old in a candy store. Right? There's so many sweets. You just want to get that sweet and that sweet and that sweet, and you just don't know, like you have overload. Joburg's like that. There's opportunity, there's girls, there's guys, there's stuff happening, there's money. It's just too much. Down here, there's not much. And not even close to as much as the energy that Joburg has. So I think thanks to these cheap flights we got nowadays, and broadband mostly, people can telecommute, and you don't necessarily have to now live in the middle of the vortex and be distracted. You can now live in a town that is a little bit less distracting and a little bit more calm and sensible and less dangerous, and think about how you're going to change the world and take over the world and make a hell of a lot of money. In terms of, how do you find that place where you want to live? I mean, it's just about people, who you resonate with. Now, I've lived in it a few times. I grew up in Pretoria. Never go back there. Then I went to PE, great people, but the armpit of South Africa. Then I went to Cape Town, and don't ask people from Cape Town what school they went to, because they're going to tell you. And then I went to Joburg, and Joburg's great, an amazing vibe in Joburg. I love Joburg. I actually live in Joburg the rest of my life, but kids, not such a great place. I lived in New York for a while, and it's kind of come out, and I've lived all these places. I'm not really sure where I want to live. I'm currently in the process of selling my wife. The biggest sell of my entire life will be convincing her that we should move to Port Elizabeth again, because it turns out I like the armpit, and that's like an iterative process. It's just you think you're in the right place, and then you realize you're not in the right place. Don't get stuck in it. Don't feel like you can't just say I made a mistake and move on. Just say, okay, made a mistake, let's move on. Of course, those decisions, that affects who you marry as well. The person you marry is the type of person that lives in the town where you live. So it's very important. Geography is almost more important than getting married young, because the type of person you marry when you're young will be determined by where you're living. Those are the 4 things. You do those 4 things, I think you can create an environment where you can focus. And if you can focus, you can make a lot of money, provided you work really, really hard, and that you keep moving. You just keep iterating. You never get stuck on something. If it's the wrong wife or husband, just move on. If it's the wrong partner in your business, move on. If you're living in the wrong town, you just move on. If you're living a big life and you've got a yacht and you're a fancy oak and all of that stuff, and now you have to change your life to a little bit more frugal, a little bit more humble, well, so what? Who cares what people think? Move on. Change what you got to do. Keep changing until you get to what you got to get to, in order to make a hell of a lot of money. And then by then you won't need the money because you're not spending any money. But the point is you can look at it then, like the Cape Town people. You know, the one thing I want to say is that for me, I can't emphasize enough the importance of finding a life partner. So business partners are business partners, but life partners, spouses. Because, you know, there's all these hidden things that happen that you don't know about when you start a business. Like you make a lot of money. I was once in the Huisgenoot. Let me tell you, a lot of people read the Huisgenoot. And when you get carried away up there, you need somebody to pull you down. When you get hit to the ground, you need somebody to pick you up. You need somebody to have legitimate children with, because children are quite cool. You need to have somebody to pay the bills for the first 2 years. My first business, I didn't pay the bills for 2 years, and my wife was luckily a CA, so she paid the bills, and you know, that's what got us free, you know, of financial dependence. So, you know, there's lots of things about getting married young. It's something I can't overemphasize enough. I think my friends all got married when they were in their early 30s. I think it's something that I tell my kids to get married young, even though they're daughters. But if there's one little piece of advice I can give everybody here, it's just to guarantee that you become a successful entrepreneur. It would be to marry the right person. Thank you very much.